Is Ole Miss about to use more 12 personnel? An absolute Ole Miss legend will tell us why that's likely a good idea.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Steven Willis, and we'll bring in Kris Mangum to talk about the Ole Miss offense, Ole Miss attracting a ton of tight ends in the portal, and just playing football at Ole Miss. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. Please give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Let's get to Kris right now. Kris Mangum joins the show, and listen to this. Ole Miss had got 3 tight end bodies in the transfer portal after last year having success with 12 personnel with Caden Prieskorn and Dae'Quan Wright. Kris, I think that 12 personnel is going to be a major part of the offense, especially with an NFL coach like Joe Judge being involved.
Yeah, I agree with you. And kind of saw that toward the end of last year with this offense where they use Wright, who's really good in space, he can stretch the field, and they use Prieskorn as a inline blocker to kind of shore up that when they had some offensive line issues. So I thought it was used very well at the end of the year. And hey, it creates some mismatches against defenses if you have the right personnel for sure. So I'm excited to see. I know the Wright kid, I'm really excited to see what he does this year. And then the transfer from Arkansas looks really, going to be a really good fit for us as well. So it's going to be an exciting, I know they're counting on that room a lot this year.
Yeah, it's weird how the evolution of football is, where in the 90s in your time frame, the tight ends had a big role in every offense. And then in the 2000s and 2010s, it kind of went away. Now, all of a sudden, heavy 12 personnel offenses have risen with the advent of these mashup-based passing games that Lane Kiffin's known for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a unique position, a hybrid position for the tight ends. Obviously, again, creating those mismatches. If they want to bring in an extra defensive back, obviously you run the football and get that mismatch. And then, hey, you see it today, safeties have a hard time matching up with tight ends at any level, and at college level and the NFL level. It's a unique mismatch that the tight ends with a much larger catch radius can just kind of catch the ball in traffic. So I agree with you. I was kind of worried about that a few years ago, just with the evolution of, like you said, college football and the no huddle, where, hey, it's spread offense. You get up to the line, the ball snap very quickly, and it's unique that you didn't have 2 tight ends in very much. Honestly, really, sometimes no tight ends. So it's good to see it coming back and making this way back into the game again.
It was not probably but 6 or 7 years ago that Dawson Knox made it to the NFL playing for the Buffalo Bills, didn't catch a touchdown pass at Ole Miss.
That's right.
And it's absolutely nuts on that. So how much have you seen of the tight end class of this year? I know you talked about Dae'Quan Wright, and I think Dae'Quan Wright, his Gator Bowl that he had last year was absolutely something to pay attention to, and something every Ole Miss fan should probably look at for moving forward. But what do you think about Luke Haas? Who's the inline tight end? Is that a Trace Bruckler, the 3rd tight end that came in the transfer portal class? Do you think close to the goal line, is that the role for a Trace Bruckler?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously, when you bring in a kid like Luke, obviously he's a really good inline blocker, or at least he was last year for Arkansas in the tape I watched. And obviously, like you said, the bowl game with Wright, I mean, it was impressive to see him catch the ball in open space, kind of run past defensive backs. I mean, you can tell they think a lot of him because a lot of the plays were designed strictly to go to him as a first option type read. And I tell you what, he produced, man. It was pretty exciting to see and him coming back. So, hey, I do know this. It's the one thing about this offense. They're going to utilize the pieces that they feel like best on the field. That's one thing Lane has done over the years. It doesn't really care who it is or if it's a good matchup for them and they can make plays, they'll be on the field. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this offense, especially with, the reemergence of the tight end position. Let's say it like that.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's like anybody that's listened to my show over the last couple of years, they actually make fun of me over my 12 personnel takes and wanting to see that. And a lot of that has to come, honestly, from the way that Tom Brady used Gronkowski when he was in New England. And if you could find matchups all over the field, it just made sense that in a high-speed offense, when you're utilizing tempo, when the defense has to make quicker decisions, matchup problems are going to be even magnified.
Yeah, especially when you can run the football. I mean, and you can play action pass off of that. I mean, especially when you have a quarterback that can get outside the pocket like Ole Miss has had over the years. So I agree with you. It creates a lot of mismatches. And it also, like I said, it kind of meshes well when you get the offensive line kind of meshing with your tight ends, working the second levels and getting those seams. And it just opens up the middle of the field in the passing game as well.
We will continue this tight end discussion with Kris Mangum, the Ole Miss legend and former high school teammate of moi, right after this. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That is where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes it easy to get concert tickets faster than ever. Prices actually drop the closer it gets to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with killer last-minute deals. Are you tired of the endless scrolling trying to find the best deal? Well, hook up Game Time's Zone Deals Pick and let them pick the best seats in your section for you. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so we are back. We are having a 12 personnel love fest on the show today, and I'm all about that, especially with the players that they brought in the transfer portal. Just got the top 10 commitment from tight ends, a 4-star committed from Illinois. It appears, Kris, that Lane and Charlie Weiss and everybody, this offense is always going to be fast, but it feels like they're going to lean into the pro style a little bit.
No doubt. And I think as a recruit, you see that on tape, right? I mean, you see that on Saturdays on the game. They showcase different positions each week, it seems like, and it's a great offense for tight ends, great offense for running backs, and a great offense for receivers, honestly, and it's across the board. And I think that speaks volumes for the type of personnel that they put on the field and been able to attract to come to Ole Miss. So I'm excited about it for sure.
All right, so we're going to go into the Glory Days segment of the podcast right now. We're going to talk to Kris. Kris, I honestly have a real question. As somebody that was out there in Magee going through the high school, at what point in your career did natural talent not become enough to where you had to become a technician?
I think that it starts in college for sure. I mean, obviously high school you can get by just being, size and speed and things of that nature can kind of overcome some, but definitely in college playing the SEC level. I mean, you have to hone your craft, and I would say technique becomes crucial because everyone there is at the top of their class in high school, and it only gets bigger and bigger as the stage goes up as well, right? I mean, I think most people, like, when you look back on your career, you say, hey, do you have any regrets or no regrets? I had no regrets. I gave it everything I had. I poured all my time and energy into it for as long as I could. I was fortunate enough to play behind some guys like Wesley Walls. I mean, when I got drafted by Carolina, I was able to see a guy I truly didn't know. I thought I knew how to practice, and then all of a sudden I get to Carolina, and Wesley's an all-pro guy, and just watch the way he practiced on a daily basis. I mean, it was really impressive, and it kind of, hey, you got to learn something from every step you take in your career. And he was a big influence on me at the pro level, just to kind of see the work and the time and the effort it took just to hone your craft. So I really appreciate him, and the friendship that we still have to this day. Just to watch him every day in practice was special for me.
I guess you've sort of followed John into Alabama whenever you signed out of high school. And then after a year, you decided to come to Ole Miss. And what kind of caused that to happen?
Yeah, I think when you're in high school, you see it today with kids transferring all the time. At the time, I thought it was the right decision for me. I mean, my brother was, my father passed away at an early age, so John was kind of like my father figure for years, and still is to this day. And to see the success he had at Alabama, to see just the way that I knew the people, it was just easy, because hey, you built those relationships, and I felt like it was the right move for me. And then when I got there, and soon after I got there, I knew I needed to chart my own path somewhere else. I just thought, I reached out to John. He was like, "Hey, you do what's best for you," and that meant the world to me. And it was the right timing. Ole Miss was the right place for me. Wouldn't change it I mean, I would make that decision 100 times out of 100 to go back, and come back home and play for Ole Miss. And so, hey, it was nothing. There was no set. There was nothing like a life defining moment. It was like, hey, I got to do it. It was just for me. It was like I knew I needed to go do my own, kind of chart my own path, and I wanted to come back to Mississippi and want to play for Ole Miss.
Yeah, and you end up going to Ole Miss, and right then all the turbulence happens within the program. What was that transition like? Because if I'm not mistaken, you had a Jolie Dunn year, you had the beginning of the Tommy Tuberville year. What was that like?
It was definitely interesting. My redshirt year was Coach Brewer's last year, and so I got to spend I practiced every day with that coaching staff, and like you said, Jolie Dunn was the interim for 1 year. And then obviously Tuberville for the last 2 years, which, Tubbs came in and kind of, be honest with you, I know he left under some murky water, so to speak, but I mean, he was good for the university when he was there. Like it was a good fresh start. Some of the best friends that I still have today were on that team and stayed really close with them. Thought we, from the situation we're in, we played hard and played well and kind of kept it afloat to where things could get turned around a lot quicker. So wouldn't trade it for anything. I really wouldn't. I hate we went through that, but tough times build tough people, and I just think that was a great group of guys in that locker room that kind of held it together.
Yeah, you make the play. Yeah, I think you graduated in '96. That was your last season?
Yes.
So the next year was the Deuce McAllister, Romero Miller class that came in, and all of a sudden that started the bowl run.
Yes.
Because people don't realize, and maybe if you're too young to listen to, this is back when not every game was on television. Ole Miss got a 2-year bowl ban. Pete Boone, who was the athletic director at that time, refused to even paint the end zones to try and save a little bit of money. I mean, it was pretty hard. So somebody like Kris and Walker Jones, who's at the Grove Collective now, they deserve all of the respect for what they got into and stuck with. And I do appreciate that, Kris.
Yeah. Some good friends. Well, still great friends with Walker. He comes down every year and plays in my memory gas golf tournament with me. Just a good guy, and what a great job he's doing at the Grove Collective. And it's good to see. It's good to see him back and part of that family.
I think it was in '96 in Athens, Georgia. That was a fun game. That was the game where Walker ran down Hines Ward.
We all get a text about once a year with the video link from Walker just to make sure we don't forget that he did that. But it was impressive for sure.
Yeah, it was one of those things. Was there any flashes from Walker, or did he just hit an extra gear that day? Tell me, what was going on there?
Walker was an athlete now. I mean, for the linebacker, he came in as a safety and then moved to linebacker, so he could always run. That never was an issue for him at all. But hey, a really, really good athlete. There's a bunch of good guys on that defense, that Brock Kreitz, it was another one that was right there with him when they were chasing Hines Ward. So it's a great group of guys, man. We're just really good friends, still stay in touch all the time with all those guys. So it's still pretty, we always have to give each other a little grief back and forth, but Walker will drop that video on you in a heartbeat about walking him down for sure.
I would too. We're going to be honest. If I had that card to play, I would play it every time I could.
It's a good one.
Yeah, if you're going to be known for something, I mean, that's better than being like a Scott Norwood. If there's a couple of things to where if it goes wrong, that you can kind of be at the bottom. But it's nice to have that. Look at this. This is what's going on.
No doubt.
Anyway, when we come back, we will talk to Kris about what's really important, and that is, how did Magee lose the state championship in 1991? I don't understand it even to this day, and I was on the team. Anyway, stick around for that. Kris Mangum joining the show, former high school teammate of me. And listen, Kris, you probably don't know the backstory on this one. This is pretty funny, I think. But that year that Johnny Mills was the coach of the team, they heard about a Brazilian exchange student that was coming in that year. So all of the assistant coaches were on the lookout for this Brazilian exchange student for a kicker for their team. That summer, my folks got divorced. I ended up moving to Magee, and I have very kinky hair. I looked like Kramer. It was ridiculous. And they thought I was the Brazilian exchange student. They asked if I could kick a soccer ball and kick a football and all that. And they even started calling me Julio, literally. And this is Magee, Mississippi in 1991. So nobody cancel anyone. But that is how I got onto the field. Listen, Kris, my mom was crazy. And I'd never played football in my life. She wanted me to wear a neck roll as a place kicker. I mean, that is what we were dealing with there. So that first year was weird and exciting and new, but that team was legitimately good. That was the best football team I ever played on. And I still can't figure out how Magee didn't win the state championship that year. They lost to, I think, Stone County and Artie Moore.
Artie Moore. Sure.
Yeah.
Funny story on Artie Moore. He went to LSU and I signed with Alabama. We both transferred to Ole Miss the same year, within a couple of weeks of one another, actually. So small world.
Yeah, I think it was Stone County had like a 310-pound quarterback too.
Correct.
And it was crazy. But I can't figure out to this day how we lost. We were good at quarterback. We had sophomore version of Harold Shaw who was just unreal. We had you as well going linebacker, playing both ways. I mean, there was just talent everywhere. And then we get beat 14-0 or something like that against Stone County.
There was kind of a fluke trick play in there to where they lined someone up on the sideline and brought them in off the sideline and threw one of those little no one covered them type touchdowns. But yeah, I agree. That was a tough one to swallow for sure. At home, we lost at home as well. So really good team. Correll Dampier was a quarterback. I remember, there was just so many. Betrell Shelby was a running back. We had two of the best running backs in the state of Mississippi, actually, with Harold Shaw. And I actually saw Harold a couple of days ago, and he lives here in Hattiesburg, Mississippi as well. So,
yeah, it was one of those things I always talk about whenever I do evaluations on running backs, because I worked at Rivals for like 10 years. And whenever you look at that, and it's like a running back at a sophomore, he can be fantastic. But the question you have to go is how much is going to grow, how much is going to weigh, and how much that's going to affect the speed and the quickness. And sophomore Harold Shaw is the best running back I've ever seen. Senior Harold Shaw was one of the better running backs in the state, but he wasn't sophomore Harold Shaw.
Yeah, he could run. He was a really, he played several years in the NFL. I know most of it with the Patriots. Really good player, great guy. Like I said, he's doing really well. It's good to see him the other day.
Yeah, I was good friends with his brother. I was good friends with Eddie in high school. Hadn't talked to him in a while, but yeah, it was fun. And before we get out of here, the news broke, I guess, 2 years ago that basically Magee's going to close down. That they're going to do a Simpson County Central. And I think the Magee Mendenhall game going away, I can't get there. I just can't.
Yeah, I agree. I know they purchased the land. We'll see how long it takes for it to actually happen. Those kind of things don't move really quickly. But if it does materialize to where they do become one, it should be a pretty impressive, a dominant football team with the talent that's in Simpson County for years. So it would be interesting to see how that plays out for sure.
Yeah, and are they talking about putting it in like that straightaway in between Magee and Mendenhall? On 49,
really close to Simpson Academy.
Okay, that's what I thought. I actually stopped by there on my way into Mississippi a couple of years ago into Magee and drove around a little bit, and it's changed, man. It's changed. I hadn't been back in a while, but it's changed a lot.
It has. My mom still lives there, so I see her a good bit. So I'm in Magee a good bit.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Kris. I hope to have you back, especially after these tight ends.
Yeah, I'd love to visit with you after watching, a few games or something pops up, man, just reach out to me. I'd love to visit with you again.
All right, Kris, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next time. Kris Mangum, Ole Miss legend, coming on the show. Anyway, we'll talk to you next time, buddy. Thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door for Ole Miss. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show and helps keep it free. Your support means the world to us. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes around college football's landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everyone, and remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.